According to Hegel, the most important place to find other people is where you might least expect them. Have you ever had that experience where you're driving your car down the road and someone swears at you because you did something they didn't like and they call you a bad name and suddenly you weren't expecting it? And what do? Typically, what people do is they swear back. I imagine you've had that experience. Most people have. With some people, that might go further. They might pull over. They might start punching each other. They might have a fight. These are real things that happen. Whether it's a matter of what they call road rage or whether it's, people getting in some kind of an argument in the bar. Somebody calls you a bad name, and that can take the point of escalating to fighting, might even take the point of fighting to the death, right? Well, what's going on there? What are you doing when you're fighting? What do you think you're accomplishing there? Right? People imagine that if they win that fight, they're going to have proved, I was the one who mattered. But if you think about it, that doesn't really make sense. What is it that you show when you yell back at that other person or when you punch that other person? What you show is that the thing they said stung you, right? So you're trying to show that you're the tough one. But what you're really showing is that you're the one who actually got hurt. What that shows is that you rely very deeply on the favorable recognition of other people. And what you're doing when you're fighting is you're effectively trying to deny that. You're trying to deal with the fact that you are vulnerable to that person's perspective by destroying them, It's not going to work. You already showed you're vulnerable to it, right? But that's what we do. There's another way you can deal with that vulnerability. This one might come up more in relationships. Not with somebody who's yelling at you, but someone that you actually care about. You care about their perspective on you. So what do? Well, people often deal with that by trying to dominate the other person, right? You make the other person feel small so that they think, oh, you're the great one. Yeah, you're right. I'm small. And they're afraid to judge you negatively or whatever, right? And you feel like, oh, since I can get them to say that I'm the great one, that proves that I'm superior. But again, notice what that really shows. If you're so great, why do you need the point of view of that person who you say is so ungreat? Right? That system of trying to dominate, where you try to show that you're the superior one, really ends up putting on display your weakness and vulnerability to that other person's point of view. So what these two things show, these two things that really come up pretty much every day. It's arguments, in yelling at people on the street, or the way we sort of subtly put down our partners or are put down by our partners in our relationships. Those practices are really things that show how deeply we're affected by the perspective of other people, and they're essentially our defensive means of trying to evade that. Well, those things I've just been describing are Hegel's famous analysis of the struggle to the death and the master and the slave. And what he's trying to show there is that, as I said, we deeply depend upon the recognition of others, and the way that's going to work is if we freely and openly acknowledge the weight and worthiness of the other person's perspective, and they freely and openly acknowledge the weight and the worthiness of our own, right? That's the first big point. But it has a couple of further implications too. So Hegel's point is that you are involved in these relationships of recognition, whether you admit it or not. And typically they're operating sort of under the surface. One way they operate under the surface is in the formation of our very personalities, right? The way we live out our lives is typically a matter of grappling with how we do or don't feel esteemed in our lives by the important others around us. And so our behaviors are typically indirect ways of dealing with those issues of recognition. The second place where we find it is in social life in general. When we have established a comfortable social world with other people, we are actually living all the time on the basis of shared ways in which we recognize each other as equals. Like just walking down the street, even though as we walk down the street, we don't even notice each other, we don't remark anything to each other, we just carry on as if we're separate individuals. What we're actually doing through our behavior is performing gestures that say to each other, we recognize each other as equals. So where's the most important place to find other people? The most important place to find other people is already in you.